The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 300 different worlds sat in their special chairs, each one designed for their unique body types. Some floated in water tanks, others hung from the ceiling like crystal wind chimes. A few rolled around on metal wheels, their bodies too heavy for most planets. Ambassador Zethkar stood at the center podium. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. The other council members had seen him give many speeches before, but today felt different. Today he looked scared. Council members, Zethkar began, his voice making musical sounds through his crystal structure. We have a problem. A big problem. The humans. A wave of whispers spread through the hall. The floating jellyfish like Veltar made soft humming sounds. The metal-bodied Korth clicked their wheels nervously. Even the ancient tree beings of Verdania rustled their leaves in worry. 300 years ago, Zethkar continued, we made first contact with a new species. They called themselves humans. They seemed friendly enough. They smiled a lot, which showed their teeth. They made loud noises that they claimed meant happiness. We thought they were harmless. Zethkar touched a control panel and a large screen appeared in the air above the council. It showed a blue and green planet spinning in space. This is Earth, he said. The human homeworld. At first glance, it looks beautiful. But do not let this fool you. This planet is a death trap. The atmosphere contains poison gas that burns through most metals. The gravity is strong enough to crush a Veltar flat. The temperature changes so fast that most species would die from shock. And yet billions of humans live there. They call it home. The screen changed to show the first meeting between humans and the Veltar. Ambassador Zethkar remembered that day well. His own people had recorded everything. The Veltar had approached Earth's solar system with peace in their hearts. They were explorers, much like many species in the galaxy. They sent out mathematical messages and beautiful music, hoping to make friends with whoever lived on the strange blue planet. What happened next still gave Zethkar nightmares. The humans had launched several ships to meet them. The Veltar expected this. Most species wanted to meet visitors in space rather than allow them to land on their homeworlds. It made sense, but these human ships were wrong. They were made of metal that should have melted in the heat of their sun. They moved too fast, using controlled explosions to push them through space. Worst of all, they came straight toward the Veltar ships without any fear. The screen showed what happened when the humans boarded the Veltar vessel. Captain Sarah Chen was the first human to step onto an alien ship. She wore a bulky white suit that made her look even stranger than she already was. The Veltar crew had been terrified. They were peaceful beings who had never seen anything like her. Humans were bipedal, which meant they walked on two legs like some kind of primitive machine. They had no wings, no tentacles, no way to float gracefully through space. They just stomped around on their 2 feet, making loud noises with each step. But the worst part was their eyes. Humans had predator eyes. Both eyes faced forward, designed for hunting and tracking prey. Most intelligent species in the galaxy had eyes on the sides of their heads, better for watching for danger. But humans? They looked like they were the danger. Captain Chen had looked around the Veltar ship with those frightening, forward-facing eyes and said something that still confused every linguist in the galaxy. Your air filters are about to fail, she had announced. The Veltar had not understood. They spoke through chemical signals and color changes in their skin. How could this alien possibly know anything about their ship? But Chen was right. Deep inside the ship, filters that cleaned their methane atmosphere were indeed failing. The Veltar had not even noticed. They would have died slowly from breathing their own waste gases. Chen had not waited for permission. She had simply started fixing things. The screen showed her removing panels from the ship's walls, her suited hands moving with impossible precision. She worked in an atmosphere that should have killed her instantly, surrounded by gases that would have dissolved her flesh in seconds, and she hummed while she worked. The Veltar crew had tried to stop her. They made frantic color patterns with their skin, chemical signals that meant stop and danger and please do not touch that. But Chen could not understand their language yet. She just kept working and humming. When other humans arrived, things got worse. They brought tools that the Veltar did not recognize. They brought food that smelled like toxic waste. And they brought something even more terrifying. They brought curiosity. What does this do? They kept asking, pointing at various parts of the ship. How does this work? Can we help fix this too? The Veltar had never met a species so eager to touch everything. Most intelligent beings were careful around unknown technology. They asked permission. They moved slowly. They showed respect for things they did not understand. Humans grabbed everything with their strange five-fingered hands. They asked a million questions. They wanted to understand how every single thing worked, and they wanted to help fix anything that was broken. By the end of that first day, the humans had repaired 17 different systems on the Veltar ship. Systems that the Veltar had not even known were damaged. The ship ran better than it had in years, and the humans refused payment. This was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. In the galaxy, nothing was free. Every species traded for what they needed. Services cost resources. Help came with a price. But the humans just fixed everything and said, "You're welcome," and went back to their own ships. The Veltar had fled as fast as their repaired engines could carry them. That was just the beginning, Zethkar told the council. Since then, humans have made contact with 47 different species. In every single case, they have done something impossible. They survive in environments that should kill them. They fix problems that their technology says cannot be fixed. They make friends with species that should be natural enemies. The screen showed more examples. Humans working in the vacuum of space with only thin suits protecting them. Humans eating food that was literally poisonous to other species and calling it spicy. Humans jumping out of perfectly good aircraft for something they called fun. They do not make sense, Zethkar continued. Our scientists have studied them for 3 centuries. We have learned their languages. We have observed their culture. We have analyzed their biology. And we still do not understand them. They are not the strongest species in the galaxy. The Korth can lift 10 times more weight. They are not the smartest. The Cerebrals can calculate faster than their computers. They are not the fastest. The Quicksilver beings can cross a solar system in hours. But they are the most persistent. They never give up. Never. We have seen humans spend years solving a single problem that other species would abandon in days. They will try 1,000 different solutions until one works. And then they will try to improve that solution too. Zethkar's crystal body dimmed as he delivered his final warning. Council members, I believe the humans are what the ancient texts call Space Orcs. They are too tough to kill, too stubborn to reason with, and too helpful to get rid of. They have spread to 73 star systems in just 300 years. They make friends with everyone they meet, whether those beings want to be friends or not. And the most terrifying thing of all, they think they are normal. They think every species should be like them. They cannot understand why the rest of us find them frightening. The council hall fell silent. 300 species representing trillions of beings across the galaxy sat in stunned quiet. Finally, a small voice squeaked from the mouse-like delegation. What do we do about them? Zethkar's crystal body flashed with what might have been a shrug. I have no idea, but I suggest we figure it out quickly. Because yesterday they sent a message saying they want to help us with our problems. The screen showed the final image, a simple message in basic galactic script. Hello, we are humans. We heard you might need help with something. We would be happy to assist. No payment necessary. We just like fixing things. The council chamber erupted in panic. Dr. Crystal had spent her entire life studying alien worlds. As the galaxy's leading xenobiologist, she had visited over 200 planets and cataloged thousands of species. She thought she understood how life worked in the universe. Then she decided to study the humans. It cannot be that difficult, she had told her research team. They are just another species. We will observe their homeworld, understand their environment, and figure out why they behave so strangely. Her team consisted of the best scientists from 12 different species. There was Dr. Venth, whose people could see heat patterns and energy flows. Engineer Polax, who understood technology better than any biological brain. And Observer Yix, who could process information faster than most computers. They all agreed that studying humans would be simple. After all, how dangerous could one little blue planet be? The first sign of trouble came when they reached Earth's solar system. The radiation levels are all wrong, reported Dr. Venth, his heat sensors flashing alarm colors. The star is too active. Too much dangerous energy. Nothing should be able to live on any planet this close to such a violent star. But their sensors clearly showed billions of life forms on the 3rd planet. Somehow life had not just survived but thrived in this radiation-soaked system, perhaps They live underground, suggested Polax. Most sensible species would dig deep tunnels to hide from such a deadly star. They moved closer to Earth and began detailed scans. What they found made no sense. The planet's surface was covered with life, not just simple creatures hiding in caves, but complex ecosystems spread across the entire globe. Plants grew in the open directly under the deadly star's rays. Animals moved freely across vast open spaces, and everywhere there were signs of the strangest life form of all: humans. "This is impossible," whispered observer Yix, his data processors working overtime. "The atmosphere is 21% oxygen. Oxygen is poison. It burns through metal. It causes everything to rust and decay. How can anything breathe it?" But the humans not only breathed it, they seemed to need it. The scans showed them taking the poisonous gas deep into their bodies and somehow using it to power their biological functions. "Look at this," Dr. Venth called out, pointing to his displays. "The planet's gravity is 3 times stronger than what most species can handle. The magnetic field is unstable. The weather systems are chaos. There are massive storms that could destroy entire cities. And yet," added Polax, "the humans build their settlements right in the path of these storms. They do not hide from them. They just deal with them." The team spent weeks observing from orbit, trying to understand. They watched humans do things that should have been impossible. They saw humans working outside in temperatures that would freeze most species solid. The humans just put on extra clothing and continued with their tasks. They saw humans swimming in vast bodies of water, not just wading carefully like sensible beings, but diving deep underwater and holding their breath for impossible amounts of time. Most shocking of all, they saw humans deliberately exposing themselves to their star's radiation. They called it sunbathing and seemed to enjoy it. "These beings are insane," declared Dr. Venth. "No intelligent species would willingly expose themselves to stellar radiation." But observer Yix had been studying human technology. "Look at their machines," he said. "They are primitive compared to ours, but they work in conditions that would destroy our equipment. Their technology is designed to function in high radiation, extreme temperatures, and corrosive atmosphere. Because they have to," realized Polax. "Their entire civilization developed on a world that tries to kill them every day. Of course, their technology is tough. It has to be, just to keep working." The team decided to get closer. They landed on Earth's moon, where they could observe the planet in detail, without actually entering its deadly atmosphere. What they saw from the moon's surface changed everything they thought they knew about evolution and survival. Earth was not just dangerous. It was actively hostile to life. The team watched massive storms sweep across continents, destroying everything in their path. They saw volcanic eruptions that poisoned the air with toxic gases. They witnessed meteor impacts that would have ended civilization on most worlds. And through it all, the humans just kept going. "There," pointed Dr. Venth. "Watch that settlement near the volcanic region." They observed a human city built near an active volcano. Logic said this was the worst possible place to build. The constant danger, the toxic gases, the possibility of total destruction. No sensible species would live there. But the humans had not just built a city there. They had built a thriving metropolis. They used the volcano's heat to power their machines. They had built early warning systems to detect eruptions. They had emergency plans to evacuate if needed. Most incredibly, they seemed to enjoy the challenge. "They are not just surviving," whispered observer Yix. "They are thriving. They have turned their death world into an advantage." The team studied human recreational activities next. This was where their understanding of the species completely broke down. "They do what for fun?" Dr. Venth asked, reviewing the data for the 10th time. The humans engaged in activities that seemed designed to kill them. They climbed tall mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. They jumped from great heights with only thin fabric to slow their fall. They raced vehicles at speeds that would be fatal if anything went wrong. "Look at this," Polax called out. "They have something called extreme sports. They deliberately put themselves in dangerous situations for entertainment." The list was endless. Humans threw themselves out of flying vehicles and fell toward the ground at terminal velocity, trusting their lives to cloth parachutes. They climbed sheer rock faces with only their hands and feet. They surfed on waves of water that could crush them in seconds. "This one is called bungee jumping," reported observer Yix. "They tie a stretchy rope to their feet and throw themselves off bridges." "Why?" asked Dr. Venth. According to their communications, because it is fun. The team sat in stunned silence. These humans actively sought out danger for pleasure. What kind of species did that? Perhaps, suggested Polak slowly. This is how they became so resilient. Their world is so dangerous that only the strongest and most adaptable survived. Over millions of years, they evolved to not just survive danger, but to seek it out. Dr. Venth pulled up more data. Look at their physical capabilities. They can run for hours without stopping. They can survive weeks without food. They can adapt to almost any climate on their planet. And their healing abilities, added Observer Yix. They can recover from injuries that would be permanent for most species. Broken bones heal stronger than before. They can even regrow some lost tissue. But the most frightening thing, Dr. Venth continued, is their minds. They see problems differently than we do. Where we see impossible challenges, they see interesting puzzles to solve. The team discovered examples of this everywhere. Humans had figured out how to fly despite having no wings. They had learned to travel underwater despite having no gills. They had even begun leaving their planet entirely, venturing into the vacuum of space that should have killed them instantly. They do not accept limitations, observed Polax. If something is impossible, they find a way to make it possible. If their environment is deadly, they adapt to it. If they cannot adapt, they change the environment. Dr. Venth brought up the most recent human achievement, space travel. They built machines to carry them off their world, he said. But look at how they did it. They strapped themselves to controlled explosions and blasted themselves into space. Most species would see this as suicidal madness. But it worked, pointed out Observer Yix. Somehow it worked. The humans had not developed graceful anti-grav technology like most civilized species. They had not discovered dimensional folding or energy manipulation. They had simply built bigger and bigger explosions until they were powerful enough to escape their planet's gravity. They solved problems through brute force and determination, concluded Polax. If something does not work, they try harder. If it still does not work, they try differently. They never give up. As the team prepared to leave Earth's solar system, Dr. Venth made a final observation that would haunt them all. We have been studying them for months, he said, and I do not think they have even noticed us. They are so focused on their own projects and challenges that a ship full of alien scientists is not interesting enough to distract them. Either that, suggested Observer Yix quietly, or they noticed us immediately and decided we were not a threat worth worrying about. Both possibilities were equally terrifying. Dr. Crickstall filed her report with the Galactic Scientific Council 3 months later. It was the shortest report she had ever written. The humans are apex survivors from a death world, she concluded. They have evolved to see danger as entertainment and impossible challenges as interesting problems. They cannot be predicted using standard behavioral models because they do not think like any other known species. Recommendation: do not attempt to understand them using conventional logic. They operate by rules we have not yet discovered. Additional note: they appear to be completely unaware of how terrifying they are to the rest of the galaxy. This may be the most frightening thing about them. The emergency alert reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. The message was simple and terrifying. The Zerathi are active. All mining operations in the Orion sector must evacuate immediately. Commander Thekvor of the Galactic Defense Force had seen many crises in his long career. Space pirates, stellar storms, even the occasional rogue planet. But nothing scared him like the Zerathi. The Zerathi were not evil. They were not invaders or conquerors. They were simply hungry. And when they were hungry, they ate asteroids, space stations, mining platforms, and anything else made of metal and minerals. They were massive creatures, each one the size of a small moon. Their bodies were made of living silicon and metal, constantly growing and changing shape. They moved through space like enormous jellyfish, flowing from one asteroid belt to another, consuming everything in their path. The worst part was that they were impossible to fight. Energy weapons just made them stronger. Physical weapons broke against their silicon hides. Even nuclear explosions only seemed to annoy them. For 500 years, the galaxy had dealt with Zerathi by running away. When they appeared in a system, everyone evacuated and waited for them to eat their fill and move on. It was the only strategy that worked. But this time was different. This time the humans volunteered to help. Absolutely not, Commander Thekvor told the human delegation. You do not understand what you are dealing with. The Zerathi are not some broken machine you can fix. They are living forces of nature. The best minds in the galaxy have studied them for centuries. There is no solution except evacuation. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb stood at attention in front of the commander's desk. He was a typical human. Medium height, unremarkable features, wearing a simple blue uniform. Nothing about him suggested he could handle a crisis that had stumped the galaxy's greatest military minds. With respect, "Sir," Webb said, "we would like to try a different approach." Thekvor's tentacles twitched with frustration. Humans always wanted to try different approaches. It was one of their most annoying habits. "Lieutenant Commander, 3 Zerathi queens have entered the Orion mining sector. They are consuming everything in sight. 12 mining platforms have already been destroyed. Thousands of workers have lost their livelihoods. What exactly do you think you can do that we have not already tried?" "We want to follow them," Webb said simply. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Follow them. The human wanted to follow creatures that could crush starships like soap bubbles. Follow them where? Thekvor asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "Wherever they go, sir. We want to understand their behavior patterns. Figure out what they really want, maybe find a solution that does not involve running away." Thekvor felt a headache forming behind his optical clusters. "Lieutenant Commander, the Zerathi move through space at incredible speeds. They travel between star systems like other creatures cross rooms. How exactly do you plan to follow them?" "Very carefully, sir, and from a safe distance." "There is no safe distance from a Zerathi." Webb considered this. "Then we will maintain an unsafe distance and try to be very quiet about it." This was so typically human that Thekvor wanted to scream. They took impossible situations and somehow made them worse by adding optimism. But the mining sector was being destroyed. The refugees were growing more desperate by the day, and every conventional solution had failed. "Fine," Thekvor said finally. "But when you get yourselves killed, do not expect us to mount a rescue mission." "Understood, sir. We will try not to need rescuing." That should have been the end of it. Webb and his small human crew should have lasted maybe a week before being consumed by the Zerathi, or lost in space. Instead, something impossible happened. They succeeded. The first reports came in after 3 weeks. Webb's ship, the Persistent Dream, had somehow managed to track a Zerathi queen across 2 star systems without being detected. Not only that, but they had begun to understand her movement patterns. "She is not randomly wandering," Webb reported during a communication burst. "She is following specific mineral signatures. Iron deposits with traces of rare elements. She seems to be looking for something particular." Thekvor studied the data that Webb's team had collected. It was impossible. No one had ever gotten close enough to a Zerathi to observe their feeding behavior in detail. The creatures moved too fast and were too dangerous. "How are you tracking her without being detected?" Thekvor asked. "We are not hiding from her, sir. We think she knows we are here. She just does not see us as a threat. Why not? We are not trying to hurt her or chase her away. We are just following, like curious youngsters. She seems to have decided we are harmless." This made no sense to Thekvor. The Zerathi had never shown any interest in other species except as obstacles to avoid or consume. The idea that one might tolerate being followed was ridiculous, but the reports kept coming. Week after week, Webb's team tracked the Zerathi queen across multiple systems. They documented her feeding habits, her movement patterns, even her sleeping cycles. "She does sleep," Webb reported during month 2, "for approximately 6 hours every 27 days. She curls up into a sphere and drifts. During these periods, she is completely motionless." "And you know this how?" Thekvor asked. "We watched her do it. From about 50 kilometers away." 50 kilometers. Webb had positioned his ship 50 kilometers from a sleeping creature that could destroy planets. Thekvor felt his species equivalent of a heart attack. But the most impossible report came during month 3. "She is trying to communicate," Webb announced. "Impossible," Thekvor replied immediately. "The Zerathi do not communicate. They are not intelligent in any way we understand. Sir, with respect, I think we were wrong about that. She has been making patterns in the asteroid debris when she feeds. Geometric shapes. Mathematical sequences. They look like messages." Thekvor pulled up the visual data that Webb had transmitted. Sure enough, the debris fields left behind by the Zerathi's feeding showed clear patterns. Spirals, geometric shapes, even what looked like star maps. "She is trying to tell us something," Webb continued, "but we cannot figure out what." That was when Webb did something so insane that it entered Galactic Military Academy textbooks as an example of what never to do under any circumstances. Approached the Zarathi directly. The emergency transmission came in 6 months after Webb had started his mission. This is the persistent dream. We are beginning final approach to the Zarathi Queen's current position. We believe she wants to show us something. Tech 4 tried to order them to retreat, but the transmission cut out. For 3 days, there was no word from Webb's team. Tech 4 assumed they had been consumed. Then Webb's voice crackled over the communication system again. Commander Tech 4, this is Webb. You are not going to believe what we found. Lieutenant Commander, please tell me you are still alive and not speaking to me from inside a Zarathi's digestive system. We are alive, sir. And the Zarathi Queen, she is not what we thought she was. Explain. She brought us to a hidden facility, sir. Ancient technology, older than any civilization in the galaxy. The Zarathi are not just consuming minerals randomly. They are collecting specific materials to maintain this facility. Dekvor felt reality shifting around him. What kind of facility? A nursery, sir. There are thousands of Zarathi eggs here, but they are not developing properly. The facility that was supposed to care for them is breaking down. That is why the adult Zarathi have been so active lately. They are trying to gather the materials needed to repair their nursery. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Thekvor's worldview crumbling. You are telling me, he said slowly, that the Zarathi attacks on our mining operations were parenting behavior? Yes, sir. They were gathering materials to fix their children's incubation chambers. But they do not understand our technology well enough to ask for help, so they just took what they needed. And the Queen brought you to this facility. Why? Because we followed her for 6 months without trying to hurt her or drive her away. She figured out that we were trying to understand. So she decided to show us the problem directly. What did you tell her? That we would help fix the nursery. In exchange, the Zarathi will stop taking materials from our mining operations. We will provide what they need in a way that does not disrupt galactic commerce. Tekfor rubbed his optical clusters with his tentacles. Let me understand this correctly. You spent 6 months following one of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. You made friends with her. She showed you a secret facility that no one else knew existed. And now you have negotiated a peace treaty with a species that we thought was non-intelligent. That is correct, sir. How? We just kept following her, sir. Humans are very good at following things. We do not give up easily. That was the understatement of the millennium. Humans did not give up at all. They followed problems across star systems until they found solutions. The Zarathi crisis ended 3 weeks later. The facility was repaired using materials donated by the Galactic Mining Consortium. The Zarathi Queens returned to their deep space territories, no longer needing to raid mining operations. Commander Thekfor filed his report with growing disbelief. A problem that had plagued the galaxy for centuries had been solved by one human who was too stubborn to run away. The plague ships appeared without warning on the edge of the Antares system. 3 massive vessels, each one the size of a small city, drifting silently through space like mechanical ghosts from a forgotten nightmare. Admiral Vextai of the Combined Galactic Fleet had seen the historical records. Every species in the galaxy knew about the plague ships, though most hoped they would never return. They were automated vessels from a civilization that had died out millions of years ago, programmed with one simple mission: destroy all life to prevent the spread of a deadly plague. The ships had appeared randomly throughout galactic history, sterilizing entire planets before disappearing back into deep space. No one knew where they came from or where they went. No one had ever successfully communicated with them, and no one had ever stopped them. All civilian vessels evacuate immediately, Admiral Vextai broadcast to the Antares colonies. Military vessels maintain safe distance and observe only. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. This was standard protocol when dealing with plague ships. Every military in the galaxy had learned the same hard lesson. Fighting them only made things worse. The ships had weapons that could crack planets. Their defenses could absorb any attack. Their AI systems were too advanced. To hack or confuse, the only option was to run and hope they would leave on their own. But then the human ship arrived. The UEV Hippocrates dropped out of hyperspace 3 hours after the evacuation order. It was a small vessel, barely the size of a patrol craft with a crew of only 12. Admiral Vextai could not understand why any human ship would come to a system about to be sterilized by ancient death machines. Human vessel, this is Admiral Vextai. You need to evacuate this system immediately. The plague ships are active. Admiral, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez aboard the Hippocrates. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Vextai felt his gill slits flutter with disbelief. Dr. Vasquez, there is nothing you can do here. The plague ships cannot be reasoned with or stopped. They have been active for millions of years. The best minds in the galaxy have studied them. There is no solution except evacuation. With respect, Admiral, we would like to try a different approach. Those words again. Humans always wanted to try different approaches. Vextai was beginning to think it was a mental disorder. Dr. Vasquez, what exactly do you think you can accomplish against machines that have destroyed thousands of worlds? We want to board one of them. The communication channel went dead silent. In the background, Vextai could hear his bridge crew making sounds of shock and disbelief in 17 different languages. Dr. Vasquez, he said carefully, did you just say you want to board a plague ship? Yes, Admiral. We think the key to understanding them is to study them from the inside. The inside of a ship designed to kill all life? Exactly. Vextai wondered if humans had a genetic defect that prevented them from understanding danger. Dr. Vasquez, the moment you step aboard one of those vessels, you will be exposed to sterilization fields that will kill you in seconds. If somehow you survive that, the ship's automated systems will hunt you down and eliminate you. If you somehow survive that, the ship will probably just blow itself up to prevent contamination. Those are certainly possibilities, Dr. Vasquez agreed. But we think the ships might react differently to humans. Why would they react differently to humans? Because we are not the species they were designed to fight. That statement hung in space like a puzzle that no one could solve. Vextai was about to demand an explanation when his sensors detected something impossible. The human ship was moving toward the plague ships. Dr. Vasquez, what are you doing? Approaching the nearest vessel, Admiral. We are going to try something. I order you to retreat immediately. Sorry, Admiral, but you do not have command authority over human vessels. This is our choice to make, Vextai watched in horror as the tiny human ship drifted closer to the nearest plague ship. Every sensor on every ship in the fleet was focused on what would happen next. The plague ship should have opened fire immediately. Its weapons should have vaporized the human vessel before it came within 1,000 kilometers. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Nothing. The plague ship ignored the approaching humans completely. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez reported, we are reading the ship's exterior. The sterilization fields are active, but they seem to be calibrated for different biological signatures. They are not affecting us. That is impossible. Actually, it makes sense. These ships were built to fight a specific plague from millions of years ago. Human biology did not exist when they were programmed. We might not register as a threat. Vextai watched the humans dock with the plague ship. He expected alarms, explosions, some kind of defensive response. Instead, the ship's docking bay opened to accept the human vessel. We are inside, Dr. Vasquez reported. The ship is not attacking us. It seems curious about us. For the next 6 hours, the galaxy held its breath while 12 humans wandered around inside a machine designed to kill all life. They sent back video feeds that no one had ever seen before, the interior of a plague ship. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Vast corridors filled with flowing light, chambers filled with impossible technology, and everywhere, displays showing the same message in languages that had been dead for millions of years. Dr. Vasquez and her team worked to translate the messages while avoiding the ship's automated systems. But the systems did not seem interested in stopping them. If anything, they seemed to be helping. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez called after 8 hours inside the ship. We need to speak with you immediately. Are you all right? Is the ship threatening you? We are fine, but we have discovered something incredible. This ship is not what we thought it was. Explain. The plague ships are not trying to destroy life, Admiral. They are trying to save it. Vextai felt his brain attempting to process this information and failing completely. Dr. Vasquez, please repeat that. The ships were built by a dying civilization to stop a plague that was spreading across the galaxy. But not just any plague. A plague that destroyed the ability of species to evolve, adapt, or develop immunity to diseases. It was making the entire galaxy vulnerable to extinction. And The ships were programmed to sterilize infected worlds to prevent the plague from spreading. But the original mission was corrupted over millions of years. The ships kept sterilizing worlds long after the plague was gone because they could not update their programming. You are telling me that the most feared weapons in galactic history have been operating on outdated software? Essentially, yes. They have been trying to complete a mission that was finished millions of years ago. Vextai felt a headache forming. What do you plan to do about this? We are going to fix them. Fix them? Yes, Admiral. We are going to update their programming and give them a new mission. Dr. Vasquez, these are machines older than most civilizations. Their technology is beyond anything we understand. How exactly do you plan to reprogram them? Very carefully, Admiral, and with a lot of trial and error. What followed was the most insane 18-hour period in galactic military history. Dr. Vasquez and her team worked inside the plague ship, while every military vessel in the sector watched helplessly from a safe distance. The humans treated the ancient death machine like a broken computer that needed debugging. They pulled up diagnostic screens. They ran system checks. They even rebooted core processes. The AI is actually very cooperative, Dr. Vasquez reported. It wants to complete its mission correctly. It just needs someone to explain what that mission should be now. And you think you can do that? We are humans, Admiral. We specialize in explaining things to confused machines. By the end of the day, something impossible had happened. The plague ships had new programming. Instead of sterilizing worlds to prevent plague, they were now tasked with protecting life and helping species develop immunity to diseases. The ships that had been the galaxy's greatest nightmare had become its guardians. How did you know this would work? Admiral Vextai asked as the human team finally returned to their ship. We did not know, Dr. Vasquez admitted, but we figured it was worth trying. The worst that could happen was that we would die horribly and you would be back where you started. That is a terrible plan. It worked, though. Vextai could not argue with that logic. The humans had taken a problem that had terrified the galaxy for millions of years and solved it in less than a day. Dr. Vasquez, how did you know to approach the ships instead of running away? Because running away never solves anything, Admiral. If something is broken, you fix it. If someone needs help, you help them. If machines are confused, you explain things to them. Even if those machines could kill you, especially then. The more dangerous something is, the more important it is to understand it. Admiral Vextai filed his report with the same sense of unreality that was becoming common when dealing with humans. A species that had been extinct for millions of years had left behind weapons that could destroy the galaxy, and humans had walked up to them and offered tech support. The humans do not see problems the way we do, he concluded in his report. Where we see impossible challenges, they see systems that need debugging. Where we see ancient horrors, they see technology that requires an update. 50 years had passed since the plague ship incident, and the galaxy had learned to live with a troubling new reality. Humans solved everyone's problems whether they wanted help or not. Ambassador Zethkar stood once again before the Galactic Assembly, but this time the Great Hall looked very different. Where once there had been 300 species represented, now there were over 1,000. The humans had helped dozens of previously unknown civilizations make contact with the greater galaxy. Some of these new species should have been impossible to communicate with. The resonance beings existed as pure sound waves. The crystal minds thought in geological timescales. The void swimmers lived in the space between dimensions. But somehow, humans had figured out how to talk to all of them. Honored delegates, Zethkar began, his crystal body now showing the wear patterns of age, 50 years ago. I stood before this assembly to warn you about the humans. I called them Space Orcs. I said they were dangerous and unpredictable. I was wrong about one thing. They are not dangerous to us. They are dangerous to our problems. A wave of agreement rippled through the assembly. Everyone had stories about humans solving impossible challenges. Today we face a new crisis, Zethkar continued. Not an external threat, but an internal one. The humans are exhausted. This statement caused surprised murmurs throughout the hall. The idea that humans could be exhausted seemed impossible. They were the species that never gave up, never stopped trying, never ran out of energy for solving other people's problems. 3 days ago, Zethkar explained, the human embassy submitted a formal request for what they call vacation time. They want to stop fixing our problems for a while and focus on their own needs. The assembly fell silent. In 50 years, the humans had never asked for anything in return for their help. They had solved crises for hundreds of species and refused payment every time. The idea that they might stop helping was terrifying. "What brought this on?" asked the Veltar representative, her skin patterns showing deep concern. Zethkar activated the main display, showing a list that scrolled for several minutes. "This is a partial record of problems the humans have solved in the past year alone." The list was staggering. They had mediated a trade dispute between the Silicon Collective and the Carbon Alliance. They had fixed a broken terraforming system that had been malfunctioning for centuries. They had helped the wandering fleet find a new home after their ships became too old to continue traveling. Last month alone, Zethkar continued, they received help requests from 87 different species. Everything from "our star is going to explode" to "we cannot figure out how to program our entertainment systems." And they helped with all of these requests? Every single one. The humans seem incapable of saying no when someone asks for help. This was the heart of the problem. Humans did not just solve big crises. They solved every problem brought to them, no matter how small or trivial. They had become the galaxy's universal technical support service. The breaking point, Zethkar explained, came last week when the delicate flower people asked for help with what they called an extinction-level emergency. The assembly waited for details of this crisis. Their emergency was that they could not decide what color to paint their new government building. The silence that followed was profound. The humans spent 3 days conducting color psychology research, analyzing light spectra, and consulting with artists from 17 different species. They provided a comprehensive report with recommendations based on aesthetic theory, cultural significance, and practical considerations. Did it solve the problem? Asked the representative from the Iron Worlds. Yes. The delicate flower people love their new building, but the human team assigned to the project has not slept in 4 days, and one of them started crying when asked what color the sky is. The assembly began to understand the scope of the problem. The humans had become so good at solving problems that everyone brought them everything, from galactic crises to minor inconveniences. "We have created a monster," admitted the Veltar representative. "We have turned the most helpful species in the galaxy into cosmic customer service representatives. The humans are too polite to tell us to solve our own problems," added the representative from the Silicon Collective. "They just keep helping until they collapse from exhaustion." Zethkar nodded sadly. "Yesterday I received a report that a human engineer spent 6 hours explaining to the crystal mines how to use a door. Apparently they had been standing in front of it for 3 centuries because they did not understand the concept of pushing. But surely the humans could just refuse some requests," suggested the Iron World's representative. "You do not understand humans," Zethkar replied. "They cannot ignore a problem once they know about it. It goes against their fundamental nature. They see something broken and they have to fix it. They see someone in need and they have to help." The assembly considered this. They had all experienced human helpfulness firsthand. It was impossible to stop them once they decided to help with something. "What do they want from us?" asked the cerebrals, their massive brains pulsing with thought. "Time," Zethkar answered. "They want time to focus on their own development. They want to explore, create, and solve problems for themselves instead of constantly fixing things for everyone else." "How long do they want?" "They have asked for what they call a sabbatical, 100 years to work on their own projects without interruption." The assembly erupted in panic. 100 years without human problem solving? Half the civilizations in the galaxy would probably collapse within the first decade. "This is unacceptable," declared the representative from the Metal Eaters. "We depend on human assistance for dozens of critical systems. Our entire economy relies on human-designed trade protocols," added the Merchants Guild. "Who will mediate? Our disputes with the neighbors?" worried the Territorial Expansion Coalition. Zethkar raised a crystalline hand for silence. "I understand your concerns, but we must face a difficult truth. We have become dependent on the humans. We have stopped trying to solve our own problems because we know they will solve them for us." "Are you suggesting we just let them abandon us?" demanded the Iron World's representative. "I am suggesting we prove that we learned something from them," Zethkar replied. "For 50 years we have watched humans approach problems with creativity, persistence, and optimism. Perhaps it is time we tried their methods ourselves." The Cerebral's representative pulsed thoughtfully. You want us to become more human in our problem-solving approaches? I want us to become more independent. The humans taught us that most problems can be solved if you are willing to try different approaches and never give up. Maybe we should start applying those lessons. But what if we fail? Asked the delicate flower people. Then we will try again, Zethkar said, sounding remarkably like a human. That is what they would do. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued that they needed human help too much to let them take a break. Others insisted that it was unfair to keep exhausting the people who had helped them so much. Finally, the Veltar representative made a suggestion that changed everything. What if we made a deal with the humans? She proposed. They can have their 100 years of sabbatical, but in exchange they have to teach us how to solve problems the way they do. A human university? Suggested the Cerebrals. More than that, the Veltar continued, a complete education program. They teach us their methods, their persistence, their creativity. We learn to think like humans think. The idea spread through the assembly like wildfire. Instead of just depending on human help, they could learn human techniques. We could call it the Human Problem Solving Institute, suggested someone. The Academy of Applied Stubbornness, offered another. The University of Never Giving Up, added a third. Zethkar found himself smiling, which was difficult to do with a crystal face. I think the humans would approve of this plan. The motion passed unanimously. The Galactic Assembly would establish educational programs based on human problem-solving methods. In exchange, the humans would get their sabbatical to focus on their own projects. The announcement was delivered to the human embassy the next day. Ambassador Sarah Chen Okafor, great-granddaughter of the original Captain Chen, read the proposal with growing amazement. You want us to teach problem-solving classes? She asked. Your methods have proven effective, Zethkar explained. We believe many species could benefit from learning human approaches to challenges. But our methods are not that special, Chen Okafor protested. We just try different things until something works. Exactly. That is what we want to learn. Chen Okafor considered this. And in exchange we get 100 years to work on our own projects without constant help requests? Correct. Deal. The Human Problem Solving Institute opened 2 years later. The curriculum was surprisingly simple. Try everything, even if it seems stupid, never give up. Even if everyone says it is impossible. Ask questions about everything, help others. But also help yourself. If something is broken, fix it. If someone needs help, help them. If you do not understand something, poke it until you do. The results were remarkable. Species that had been stuck on the same problems for centuries began finding solutions. The crystalline hegemony developed new technologies.